Hello, Stand Up Paddle community. I'm Kristen Thomas, and I'm here again with SupConnect Live to interview the interesting people in the stand-up paddle world, and we have lots of them. And today, again, another amazing young lady. So excited to talk to her. First things first, thank you for being here. Thanks for tuning in again every Thursday in the month of May, 1 p.m. Pacific time. We also have a follow-up group on Facebook called SupConnect Live Discussions. We love you to join us. That's where we put links to anything we talk about today, pictures, that type of thing. So really would love to have you join us there. So without further ado, I'm going to invite our guest today, which is none other than the impressive and inspiring Fiona Wylde. And if you don't know her yet, you will get to know her better today. Really looking forward to chatting with her. I had the mask on. I don't know if you guys saw it. Aloha, a friend made this. So we do realize it's a strange situation we're in right now in a strange world, but we appreciate that you might have a little more time to enjoy learning about the things that we can't always do, like getting on the water, and make some plans for the future with that. So we are waiting for Fiona to join us. Again, go to Facebook after this. These are also recorded, and you can find all of the interviews that we've had. I think this is the 8th or 9th on SupConnect's playlist called SupConnect Live. Hello to the many people joining us. I think I see the crew from Panama. We've had a great following. Hi, Fiona. It says it's waiting for you to join, so let me try one more time. Go live with Fiona Wylde. Add. Let's see if she jumps in this time. I know she's there because she's sent the little wave, and we can wave back. There she is.
Hi.
Hi, I saw you waving on the little feed. I'm like,
I'm here.
Come on in. Fiona Wylde. I am doing really well. How about you?
Excellent.
Yeah, well, we've got
It's a beautiful day up here in Oregon.
and it's beautiful here in California too. So I thought we might lose some people to the live, but it looks like we have a great group already, and the names have been scrolling by because you have understandably a really big fan club, and for very good reason. You have packed an amazing amount into your 23 years. You are top of the sport. You had your best year ever last year, and I really want to talk about, your sup surfing and your sup racing, and you're really at the top of your game, and I'm sure will continue to be only better. But let's back up a little bit because you have such an interesting water woman lifestyle for all 23 of your years. Parents who are windsurfers. You've lived or spent time in 3 different amazing places that have wind. So catch us up on what your water background is a little bit and where Stand Up Paddle jumped into that progression.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me here. It's fun. It's fun to do things like this, especially in the given circumstances that we're all living through right now, where, the things that we took advantage of before aren't there in daily life or in different ways. So it's really cool to be here. Yeah, for me, being on the water has been a part of my family since I was very small. My parents had a boat when I was quite small, and so we would spend most of our afternoons and weekends out sailing. I was born in Port Townsend, Washington, so we would spend time up there in the Puget Sound and San Juan Islands, cruising there. And both my parents work on boats, so that's been their livelihood since before I was born and continues to be so now. So being in the water and around the water has always been a huge part of my life and what I love to do. And windsurfing came naturally. My mom actually taught my dad how to windsurf.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There was a joke going around when my mom and dad got together, and it was a bumper sticker. And it said, I would have married him, but he couldn't jibe. And jibing is the term you use when you turn around your windsurf gear. So when my mom asked my dad if he could windsurf, he was like, of course I can windsurf, I didn't know how to jive. So of course windsurfing has been a big part of my upbringing, my life, and just our family out in the water. So yeah, since I was tiny, I would since I was a baby, they'd take turns going sailing on the beach in Mexico, where I would grow up spending the winters there, and learned to windsurf myself when I was quite small, and have competed in windsurfing pretty much since I was 8 years old until
8. Wow.
all the way till I was about 20 when stand-up paddling really started taking off for me. But I've competed on the PWA Windsurfing World Cup, the American Windsurfing Tour. I won a junior world title in wave sailing for windsurfing, and it's been my background. It's been my base. I love being on the water. But there's so many different ways to windsurf, and I think that is what led me to stand-up paddling. I was introduced to stand-up paddling through Big Winds, the local shop here in town, and Steve Gates, who unfortunately passed away this last fall. But he and his family introduced me to stand-up paddling because he had a windsurfing team already started of 4 kids. And he introduced us to stand-up paddling, but not just cruise around paddling. He introduced us to racing. And I learned to paddle when I was 14. And that was the beginning of the seed that he planted that. And my passion for paddling grew, my passion for windsurfing grew, and basically my passion for just being outside on the water grew. And I like competing. So I started competing in all sorts of different races, windsurf events, all at the same time. And it just kind of ended up snowballing from one event to another. I'd win a couple events. A big turning point was when I won the Gorge Paddle Challenge here. I won that for the first time when I was 16. And that was a big deal because I beat everybody that was the top of the heap at that point. Candace, Annabelle, Jenny Kalmbach, and that was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know I could do that. Nobody else did either. So that was a big turning point.
Yeah, if anybody hasn't been, your event is, I call it your event, but Hood River, Oregon is an amazing town and an amazing place. And it's such an amazing way, as you said, with windsurfing, there's so many ways to also enjoy stand-up paddling. And downwinding on the Hood River is such a unique thing. And you definitely have a little hometown advantage doing that all the time. But people love it so much. And it must have been just amazing, though, like you said, to turn around and say, wow, I just beat all these women.
Yeah,
who are
that specific experience, because how it works is the Gorge Paddle Challenge, it's there's a downwind race, and then the next day there's a course race. So you have to do well in both downwind and course racing. That's been the format it's been since the very beginning. At that point in time, we were just doing one downwind Vienta run. Now we're doing two. Because we just all love it so much and have to do more. Yeah, and so in order to win the overall event, you have to have the least combined time for the downwind and the course race. And it was super close. There was like a minute and 15 seconds or something like that between the men's winners, and with us, with the women, there were 4 seconds.
Wow.
And we had all done the math, my whole family, the team, everybody, because this is when I was very much like a member of the Big Winds Junior Elite team.
Yeah.
And we thought that it was between Candace and I, and we thought Candace had gotten it. And so we're like, you know what, how cool is it to be close to this? This is amazing, to be in this position. Like, everybody was still happy, but nobody thought I won. And then when the announcer said that I had won the race, it was like, wow, oh my God. It was crazy. But
Fiona has arrived, yeah. And it's so neat in so many ways that you were a part of that jet team. I know you've done some coaching with them. It was a big loss losing Steve Gates, but I'm thrilled that the event is going to go on. SIC is sponsoring, I understand, again. Well, we have, of course, the big if is when we can get back to these things.
Absolutely.
But hopefully by August, mid-August, right?
Yeah, as of now, the schedule, the event is still on the schedule, planning to go ahead. We're hoping that, travel restrictions and just, access restrictions will be eased by then, and people will be healthy enough to be able to come to the event. But yeah, super happy that SIC is still stepping up. Big wins. It's a big year. We lost Steve last year, which it's a huge shock and very difficult for the whole community. But it's the 10-year anniversary of the event. So we want to put together a big one, and we want to put
Yeah.
together a big one for Steve. So we're hoping that, everything can go ahead. And if it's the first race of the season, then that would be a
That wouldn't be
pretty good
bad.
way to
Yeah.
kick it off. So,
It would be. So if you're not familiar with this, please look it up. It's really an amazing event, and it's everything around it. We've talked about experiences, and that even if you don't race, you should come to enjoy Hood River, Oregon, and Washington across the other side of the river. And it's just a really beautiful spot and a beautiful way to enjoy stand-up paddling. Yeah.
thank you. I think so too.
Yeah. One, you also have spent time in Maui. Just I mention all of these because water and wind, and in quite a few of them, waves. And you
Yeah.
have become quite the surfer. I've enjoyed watching you at places like Santa Cruz Paddle Fest, where we have both contests. And I think you've really, really excelled especially well at those events that have both the racing and the surfing.
Yeah,
So,
it's pretty cool. I didn't grow up surfing. I live in Hood River, and it's about a 2.5, 3 hour drive to get to the ocean. And when I grew up, where I grew up in Mexico, it was about the same, about 2.5 hours to drive to the other side of the Baja Peninsula to go surfing. So growing up, surfing wasn't something that I was used to,
mhm.
but through windsurfing, I got exposed to waves and discovered that I actually really enjoyed being out in the waves and just, learning the way that waves work, and especially combined with wind, with the whole windsurfing thing. There's so many different aspects to it. And I'd never surfed, never really stand-up surfed, never really surfed a longboard, shortboard, till I was 15. It was just, not something that I had been exposed to. But then when I got exposed to going surfing, I realized how much fun it was and how much I wanted to do it and how much I wanted to learn how to stand up surf. So my progression through surfing is kind of backwards for most people because I started stand up surfing and I'm still learning, obviously, stand up surfing, but still learning how to surf traditionally without a paddle. And that's a challenge for me. It's different. Timing is different. Equipment is
Yeah.
different. All these different things. But yeah, my progression through surfing went pretty quickly because at that time I was spending a lot of time in Maui, Hawaii
Hmm.
for
Windsurfing, right?
windsurfing,
Yeah,
pretty
with
much,
waves. Yeah.
just for windsurfing. But then, in the mornings when it wasn't windy, I'd start go stand-up paddling and stand-up paddle surfing. And that was the definition of fun. It was so cool. And there were some events going on at the time, so I decided to go ahead and enter. The first couple events I didn't do so good, but then all of a sudden I learned how to compete a bit more. I learned how to put heats together. I've worked with a couple different people like Ian Cairns over the years, and working with somebody like that, a coach who knows how, competition works, who knows surfing is and knows how to put the two together, that was huge for me. And that really kind of helped march me along a little bit faster. And then, yeah, last year I won the APP Sunset Beach Pro, which was pretty cool.
Very.
That was like, that was a big turning point because, I just kind of proved to myself, surfing is one of those things that I don't think that I'm necessarily a surfer. Even though I have a ton of surfboards downstairs in my garage, it's not something that I've grown up with for a long time. So when I won a world tour event, I was kind of like, oh, okay, I can do this. I'm not
Yeah.
so bad. Like this is fun, and I think I do well because I don't have the pressure on myself
Mm.
to win all the events. I would love to, but it's when I just realize it's like, hey, this is something that I do because I love to be out here and love to surf, and I love to push myself in events, and I like to have the opportunity to surf in locations with only 3 or 4 other girls out. That's really cool. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of what got me into competing and surfing in the first place. And then the results are like a cherry on top.
Yeah. Well, that was just part of your year last year, your very successful year. And thinking about you starting at age 8, I didn't realize that, and competing and traveling so much just in your lifestyle, but then with all these competitions, I would love to see your passport. Or have you already filled it up? Are you on like passport number 3? So many
I
stamps.
did. I did have to get a new passport, and I was able to get the passport that has the extra pages in the back. And that was about a year and a half ago, and I'm about 2/3 of the way full on.
Yeah.
Last year, I spent about 7.5 weeks at home in Oregon, and I
Wow.
spent the rest of the time on the road traveling and competing.
Yeah.
I competed in 29 events, between racing and stand-up surfing. So there was a lot of back-to-back-to-back weekends, and if I had a bit of time off, I would fly home. So last year, I I think I traveled to 17 different countries
Wow.
last year, if I remember correctly. And the cool thing is, every single one of those countries I traveled to for stand-up paddling, and have friends in so many countries now because of stand-up paddling. And that community has continued to bring me back to so many different places and keep me connected,
Yeah.
with people from all over the world, which, to be honest, is completely the best part of paddling.
People and community. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned all that travel. One that sticks in my head that I don't know if it was the highlight of your year, but it was just amazing what you did. You finished an event in the US and flew with one other racer, Michael Booth, to Europe to make a race the next day. So briefly tell us that story. That was crazy.
That was so crazy. So what the scenario was there is, Michael Booth and I were teammates from Starboard and have been for quite a few years now. And so I compete both on the APP Surfing World Tour, APP Racing World Tour, and then last year I was leading the Euro Tour, so the European Racing Series,
Mm-hmm.
that spans about 2.5 months in Europe, and all the best racers in the world go there and compete in practically a different country every weekend. And last year had a bit of an interesting schedule where we had all the races, pretty much in May and June, and then there was a big gap. And the finals, for all sorts of different reasons, just mainly event logistics, were the first week in September. But that coincided with the same weekend the APP race was in New York. So I competed in the surf contest in New York, which was first. So I did a week of surfing. Then I had to do racing. So I raced, in the sprint race. Unfortunately, I got a fifth there, which wasn't my best result in the sprint racing. But I was able to turn it around, and on Saturday, I got a second place, in the distance. So I was really happy with that result. Saturday night, Michael Booth and I jumped on a plane. We got driven to the airport. It was actually Michael Booth, Arthur Rootkin, and Christian, a little polar bear from Denmark.
Yeah.
We all flew, over, had a layover in Sweden really quickly, ran to the next day, got to Hamburg, drove to Scharbeutz, which is in northern Germany, and we landed there at about 2 o'clock. Now, the race was late on Sunday afternoon. It was a 4 o'clock race. So the cool thing about this was that we had made it in time. Our flights were on schedule. We got there, and we got to sleep for about an hour before we got to race. So that was excellent. The crazy thing with the results is, and the reason why we had to do it, is because the points were so close. Michael was really tight with T2 for the title, and I was really close with Olivia. At this point, I was leading the Euro Tour, and there hadn't been an American woman to win the Euro Tour, so I really wanted to do it, and just for myself too. I wanted to win the Euro Tour, and Olivia and I were really close. If I hadn't showed up, Olivia had to get third or worse for me to win the Euro Tour. But if I was there, then I pretty much had to get first or second. She would have to get third. If she won, I would lose the race, even if I got second, or the tour.
Tour, yeah.
So there are all these different scenarios that were coming together. And we've got there. Somehow, I managed to win the race. I'm not sure if we were just going on,
Adrenaline,
crazy, whatever,
yes, yeah.
adrenaline,
Whatever it is,
excitement
yeah.
for doing something completely out of the blue. But Michael won the men's race. I won the women's race. We both won the Euro Tour, and it was crazy. It was cool to be able to prove to yourself that, okay, an idea that's kind of out there. Because when I first realized that I had to fly overnight flight from America to Europe to try and race the next day for an entire title, what part of that makes sense? But sometimes you just have to go for it. And when you go for it, you organize what you want to do. You put your mind in that right spot. You mentally get there. You can do it. You
Yeah.
totally can do it.
Well, I think you mentioned, I mean, your mental game is strong, and you're only 23, but you really seem like you understand yourself in competition in a way. And it's so true what you said, that you can't always predict. You didn't know if all those ducks were gonna like work out, but you go for it and you make things work, and it's been amazing to watch you do that. You have a little bit of a setback, I heard, but you're on the mend.
Yeah, thumbs
Yeah.
up. You can see my tan line.
Oh
Um,
yeah, so you had a
I've
wrist wrap.
I broke my thumb 2 months ago, actually almost 9 weeks ago now. And thumbs are really important, and they take a long time to heal. Are two things that I've learned. But I've had a brace, and so my paddling has been limited quite a bit. I've actually been doing a lot more prone paddling, but just this last week, I've been able to take the brace off, and I have quite a bit of range of motion
Oh,
now,
good.
which is good. And yeah, just been trying to stay healthy. Fortunately, breaking my thumb coincided with a lot of closures. So there's been a lot of access points to the river closed during this time. So that, as frustrating as it has been to not be able to go out and do what I absolutely love to do, we just haven't been able to do it as is. Openings and access points are starting to open up a bit now. But here in Oregon, it is very different county to county. And most importantly, people are being urged to stay local. So I haven't been posting too much about my time on the water, because it's really important for each community to stay within each community. And so Hood River and communities all up and down the gorge have not been promoting access points outdoors very much, just to limit the amount of influx from other places coming here, because we have incredible recreation facilities here. But yeah, it's pretty much at this point, like, it's hard with the river because you have to typically drive there because you have equipment, but none of the bike trails, none of the running trails, anything like that, there's no parking allowed. So if you want to get to the trails that are open, you have to get yourself there by your feet or a bike.
California, very similar, different entities, different cities and states and counties. I mean, portions have different rules. Access is the issue, parking, but trying to encourage recreation locally, but not without, like, our beaches right now in my town are open from 6 to 10, and you may not sit your butt down on the sand. You need to be moving in the water or along the sand, walking, jogging, walking your dog, surfing, paddling, but for a limited time. So they're trying to do things in phases.
Yeah, and I think that's important right now. It's very hard because it's very different to adjust massive amount of millions of people to new ways of life very quickly. But understanding the position that we're in, we just have to do that. And safety, not only for ourselves, but for our neighbors, for the community members, for everybody else, should be the number one priority. And luckily for a lot of communities, it is right now.
Yeah.
So maybe not so much.
So again, congratulations on your amazing year and other wins. And we can talk, if we have time, about like so many amazing experiences I'm sure you've had. But to me, one of the things that not everybody knows about you, because they know you as stand-up paddle queen, is you had a major event, multiple major events in your 17th, 18th year, graduation, becoming an adult, and then you found out that you were type 1 diabetic. So talk a little bit about that, because you do so well, people sometimes don't even know that. But it's work, and you have an amazing attitude, and share.
Well, type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease where your pancreas doesn't produce insulin, which means that when you eat anything that has carbohydrates in that food, your body breaks down the carbohydrates into sugars, which go into your bloodstream, and insulin allows for the sugars that are in your bloodstream to go to your muscles, to fuel your muscles, so you can have energy to be able to go out and not only just do sports, but perform daily functioning things that your body needs to do. When I was diagnosed with diabetes when I was 18. It was my graduation day, so it was May 2015. It was my first year being contracted with Starboard as a professional athlete, and it was like my season to, kick this thing off. I was going to hit the ground running and get ready to, show the world what I had to show. It didn't exactly happen like that because I basically got to race in the Carolina Cup, and I was sitting in second for most of the race. And in the last mile, I crashed and I went from second to sixth. I basically just kind of stood still and I was like, well, I need to train more. This is my first year really flying as a professional. I need to train harder. And I didn't get healthier after that. I was training, but I was losing a lot of weight, a lot more weight than I should be. I was constantly drinking water, but constantly dehydrated. Mouth was super dry. All these difficult things that I had never experienced before. So I went to the doctors, and they just thought I had an infection and gave me some antibiotics and sent me home. That happened twice. And then finally I went in and explained all my symptoms, and the doctor asked me if anybody had checked my blood sugar. And I said, no.
No.
I mean, I'm 18
What's
years
that?
old. Why would somebody check my blood sugar? So he checked my blood sugar, and my blood sugar was 586. That number meant nothing to me. I didn't know anything about diabetes. I had heard a little bit about type 2, but didn't really realize there was a big difference between type 1 and type 2. And basically, my doctor sat down with me right there and said, I'm really sorry to tell you, but you have type 1 diabetes. And I was emotional. I had no idea what that meant, what was going on, anything like that. And what that meant for my sport, for this career that I had just basically signed up for, that I was so excited and working super hard for. But to fast forward, what it means is that I need to be extra aware of what is going on. Type 1 diabetes doesn't go away. You don't get a break from it. There isn't a cure right now. I've worked with a lot of different organizations to try and promote awareness about type 1 diabetes so we can work towards a cure. So hopefully people young and old don't have to deal with this, because what it means is that I wear a device on my stomach that has a needle into my stomach that keeps track of my blood sugar, so I can look at it on my phone and see what my blood sugar is doing at any time of the day. That I also have to inject myself with insulin, and that's anywhere from 5 to 12 injections a day, depending on where my blood sugar levels are at. So it's a constant monitoring, it's a constant awareness. Diabetes affects exercise because when you exercise, you naturally drop your blood sugar through cardio exercises. So because of that, I have to make sure that I have sugar on board when I'm racing, pretty much when I'm doing anything. If I leave my house, I carry some sort of sugar with me. It becomes difficult when it comes to traveling because I have to make sure that I have all of my medications lined up ahead of time for the entire duration of the trip that I am going with. So it takes a lot of preparation, but it doesn't mean that I can't go out and do what I love to do, because going out and being on the water is my favorite thing. And from the beginning, my goal was to not let diabetes hold me back from my passions that I wanted to do. There's been a few races that haven't gone to plan, and I've had to drastically adjust my race plan. Like I've had severe lows during races where I've had to eat quite a lot of food during the middle of a race. I don't feel so good, but I'm able to push through it. And then I've also had highs during races, which those are very difficult. And they make you feel different. You don't necessarily feel like yourself when your blood sugar is high or when your blood sugar is low. And all those different things, all those different levels, every number has a different feeling and affects me differently. Sometimes eyesight goes in and out a little bit if your blood sugar is high. So it's a lot harder to focus, which just kind of makes it difficult for anything. And yeah, it's something that you have to learn about, and each person is different, and for those that have type 1 diabetes, and each family dynamic is different. Luckily, I've had a lot of support through not only the diabetes world, but with my family too, because that, like, if you have type 1 diabetes or know somebody else that does, that's the most important thing, is to be able to talk openly about type 1, and if you need help, ask for help. There are so many different people, myself included, who would like to speak with you or point you to professionals that can give you a hand too.
Well, you are an amazing role model and you have done so much. We have a question here from someone who I think just came online. Veronica Wylde is a nurse. I think she's actually at the hospital right now. And she said
Thank
about
you.
you, she is my fave because she has to manage her diabetes and her fluctuating blood sugars during her races. Inspiring. How is her Dexcom working for her? And then her other question was, I talk to young kids in the ER who come in newly diagnosed, and she tells them your story. I
Oh,
wonder, and she wondered if you had ever been in DKA, which I'm going
yeah.
to let you say
Well,
what that
thank
is.
you, Veronica, and thank you for everything that you're doing right now. Especially in these moments with the coronavirus, having an autoimmune disease makes it a lot scarier. You're automatically susceptible. So, all the healthcare providers that are out there working super hard, thank you. To answer your first question, Dexcom is kind of like my unsung hero. My Dexcom and I are partners. It's a device I wear on my stomach. You'll see if you look through a few pictures on my Instagram of that Dexcom. It's super small. It fits under whatever, race jersey, wetsuit, anything I'm wearing. So it's not uncomfortable. But it takes a reading of my blood sugar every 5 minutes. So when I'm racing, I always wear a hydration pack, which you'll normally see that too. And in one side, I have my phone in one pocket, and the other side, I have some sort of gummies, something quick that I can eat while I'm racing. And I also wear an Apple Watch. And so while I'm racing, well, actually all the time, but my phone Bluetooths to my Apple Watch, and I can look at my Apple Watch and see what my blood sugar is doing during a race. So I know I'm constantly monitoring whether if I'm going high, keep paddling, keep going, and if I'm going low, make sure I have a snack available and can eat while I'm paddling. To answer her second question, DKA is called diabetic ketoacidosis, and what it means is it basically means that your blood sugars build up ketones, and when you get so high that your blood sugar hasn't been able to been released into your muscles yet, you go into this state called diabetic ketoacidosis, which means that you have to go into the hospital. A lot of times it's discovered because you become unconscious, pass out, and it's scary. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, that is what leads to a diabetic coma, which is not all completely unknown or unheard of. But luckily, I personally have not been in DKA, and I also have not been hospitalized, which, if you were to take a look at my numbers when I was diagnosed, is unusual. My current blood sugar when I was diagnosed was 586 milligrams per deciliter, and normal would be around 90. So I was really high. An A1C value, which is your 3-month marker on your buildup of sugars in your blood. Mine right now is about 6.5, which is where I want it to be as somebody with diabetes. And when I was diagnosed, that was 14.1. The max is around 15-ish, kind of varies a little bit. So with those numbers, I would probably end up in the hospital. I probably should have ended up in the hospital.
Wow. Yeah.
But I wasn't feeling the symptoms. I was still going paddling. I was feeling weak, feeling weird, feeling strange, but it wasn't affecting me completely drastically. I was able to function, which a lot of times with those numbers, you can't function very well. So I didn't end up going to the hospital. I learned very quickly how to get on insulin. I learned how to check my blood sugar. I learned what to eat when my blood sugar went low. I actually learned all that within about 3 days because 4 days after I was diagnosed, I had a flight to go to Europe to race for the first time in the Euro Tour, and I really wanted to do it. So with the permission of my doctor, I actually went and did it.
That is so impressive.
Kind of crazy,
Yeah.
but it was also the best stepping stone. So I went from a place like at the beginning of the week to being completely frazzled, like felt like life was just spinning out of control. Like I'm sure a lot of Veronica's patients, when they're first diagnosed, you don't know. And to hear that part of your body doesn't work is just frightening. But to be able to take that one step further and go and do what I was doing before, that was the best feeling. And that was the best thing for me to do in that moment, because I just showed myself that no, life doesn't have to change. We just need to adjust how daily life goes.
Yeah. Well, truly impressive. And that speaks to your tenacity. And you mentioned as an athlete, you probably have like higher pain tolerance, probably part of why you didn't end up in the hospital, which has a good and bad side to it. You don't want to ignore things, but you know, you're used to kind of being tough from the different competitions that you've been in for
Yeah, you
so long.
are. You know, being an athlete, you learn to push your pain threshold, especially as more of an endurance side athlete. You learn that pain threshold can be played with a little bit. You will learn when you've crossed that too far. But being an athlete also means you have to pay attention to your body and you have to listen to your body. You know, it's easy to push yourself super hard, but then maybe recovery takes 3 times as long as it's supposed to. The same thing is with diabetes. So now I've had to change my training. And, you know, you're constantly learning. Having type 1 diabetes is trying to like hit a moving target in the dark. You don't know exactly what all the factors are that are influencing your blood sugars, but training with diabetes means that I need to plan recovery, because having diabetes takes about 2.5 times longer to recover than a normal athlete. Food, of course, is a major thing. Traveling also plays a big aspect in managing diabetes because time changes are different. So there's a lot of different parts that all come together, but it makes you pay attention. Definitely makes you pay attention.
Wow. Well, managing and balancing all these things, and we haven't even talked about all the things you're involved with, is amazing. But before we leave this, you were in Forbes magazine.
I was. That was pretty exciting.
Yeah. Super impressive. Yeah. I mean, how many of us can say that?
Yeah, that was
Very cool.
that was very cool. Forbes magazine wanted to do a highlight on me after competing in this year's Red Bull Heavy Water. That combined with diabetes, how that all works. And basically they did a profile on me as a professional athlete, a young woman studying. I'm currently studying geography and geospatial science. So being able to apply what I'm doing for my career into my education at the moment, because geospatial science is basically learning about everything that we're at in the moment. And learning how to pinpoint that onto a specific location and collect all the data for that and put it into a map that is digitized so you can send it to a lot of people. So that with diabetes and then applying all of those things into Red Bull Heavy Water, which was about the gnarliest, scariest race I've ever done, amidst paddling through pea soup fog off the Golden Gate when there was like 15-foot sets. Yeah. So it was quite the topic that Forbes chose. I think Forbes is kind of known for like pinpointing those and collecting on it. So yeah, but it was also quite the honor to be able to have an article in Forbes. And yeah, it was really cool how far that article went. So.
Well, they chose the right person. I mean, you really are so well spoken and mature for your age, and such a great role model, leader. Before I jump to the next one, there's a bunch of hellos from London and Rio de Janeiro, and somebody said Gula, and Laura Clayton saying hello to both of us from Hawaii.
I saw a friend on there from Brazil, so
wonderful. Yeah, you probably know some of the Instagram handles that are flying by us right now, but super fun. But you've been a real leader in terms of the athletes and trying to get them together. We both share a passion. I at just the novice level, masters and all that. It's like your dad who also races.
You're the original racer.
Well, 10
Nobody
years,
but no, dispute me on that. Nobody will dispute me on that.
Thanks. But we're not organized yet. I mean, it's gonna take some time and effort. I try to come from the point that, hey, everybody who's tried, whether I agree with them or not, they're making an effort in trying to get this together. Not only having worked in the industry, it's not just the sport and the competitive side, but just everything about stand-up paddling and how we define ourselves. needs
Yeah.
to have conversations. So I appreciate so much that you are one of the ones who really has stepped up, and you maybe 3 or 4 years ago formed a group trying to get the athletes kind of to get together and have a voice.
Yeah, so like you say, the sport of stand-up paddling is not organized. There are different entities within the big bubble that, have their things together, that are organized, that have schedules, that have races, that have events, and that hold to, what they say they're going to do. There are events and organizations that don't. On the other hand, saying that this sport, but basically the whole thing is that what I created about 4.5 years ago was something called the Paddlers Collective, where a group of us got together to decide that the athletes need a voice to be able to go and speak to different events. We needed to speak with the APP, we needed to speak with the Euro Tour, we needed to speak with ISA and ICF, because those are pretty much the four entities right now that all have major stakeholders in our sport. Not everybody is doing everything in the same direction, but not everybody is also going in completely opposite directions. There's just a lot of different people going kind of in different directions. Sometimes paths intertwine, but a lot of times, the Euro Tour has one thing, APP has another, ISA, ICF are, kind of polar opposites going in two different directions as well. So then at the center of all that, you have the athletes. And athletes are running around doing this because, as fortunate as we are to be able to have money and exposure in our sport, in order to make it viable, you pretty much have to compete in everything. And that's what I've done. I've been able to make a career out of the sport, but because I've spent, 10 months out of the year traveling all around the world, competing in different locations. There is an amazing factor to that. I will not, play that down at all. But to give you guys a little bit insight on where we're at right now with the Olympic decision, ISA and ICF have been in the court of arbitration in Switzerland for about 3 years now, I want to say. Maybe a little bit less. At the beginning, it was between ISA and ICF. The two organizations were not able to come to a decision, so then it went to pretty much the panel that is in that court to make the decision for them. Apparently, there has been a decision that has been made, although neither the ICF nor ISA nor athletes or any stakeholders have heard of a decision. Mm-hmm. The difficult part with this decision right now is that it's hurting the athletes that are in the sport right now. Olympics is something that can, I won't say make or break a sport, but it can definitely help a sport. Going to the Olympics, being on an Olympic team, it goes beyond just the few athletes that make it to the Olympics. There's a lot of structure that gets built in behind it. There's
Absolutely.
Clubs, there's training, there's events, qualifiers, all these other things that I think could really help stand-up paddling. But as a decision that needs to be made on the top, is currently affecting the athletes that are here now. So you could take me in as an example. I am 23 years old. The first Olympics I believe we'd be looking at would be 2028, would be potentially the earliest. Okay, so that's in 8 years. I'm going to be 31 at that point, and I'm sure that I will still be paddling, and I hope to be paddling then. But it's basically what I'm saying is I'm one of the young people at the point right now in the sport. And the fact that a decision has been dragging on for such a long time is taking opportunities away from the people that are helping build up the sport right now. It'll be amazing for the younger generation if, hopefully the Olympic decision is made that we can actually be a sport in the Olympics competing. But the time that goes on takes away from the athletes that are here right now helping grow the sport. Yeah. And so I think that is one aspect of
well, and I think it's more than just the Olympics. That holding that decision that they supposedly made last fall and not telling us really is holding up so many other things because there's a trickle down effect. So even not Olympics, we want to know how they're defining us, which again has been a whole nother conversation about how that strange that feels, that
Yeah.
most of the people that I consider the core of stand-up paddleboarding weren't involved in it in any way, because it's two
Yeah.
other sports. And again, it's not bad, it's just unusual. And I think, but the part that I'm with you is holding that decision. I don't understand what's going on there, and nobody seems to know why. It's been over half a year since, and again, it dragged on before that when it was happening. And
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't
So,
help us get the sport organized.
no, and the other thing that doesn't help is that there have been practically zero opinions, voices, anything said from people who are actually in the sport right now. It's been different organizations that have come in and said, hey, we want the sport of stand-up paddling. We're going to take it to do what we think is best with it. And there have been, a bit. Casper Steinfath has always been a big voice in stand-up paddling with the ISA. And he's done a really good job speaking with them for many years. The ICF, I don't believe, has a representative, but even still, unfortunately, a lot of these decisions have gone way beyond the people who are connected directly with the sport, and that was pretty much the idea with trying to get the athletes to come together to be able to talk. Taking that one step further, because a lot of different people are in the sport and kind of have different ideas for the sport, the people that have successful platforms want to keep those going. Velara's done a really good job with the Euro Tour, and he wants to keep that going and totally support that. The APP, they've had some bumpy moments in the road. They've also had a lot of success over the years. But they're kind of running two different platforms right now, and it's hard to pull everything together. I don't think we need to pull everything together. I don't think that would be beneficial to our sport, but I do think that there needs to be a little bit more. Actually, what there needs to be is just a few different guidelines that we can all agree upon, or at least somewhat agree upon.
Right. To connect us together, to make it a little more cohesive. You can have multiple series. Is that
Absolutely.
Sharky?
Yes, that's Sharky.
Sharky, you should bring Sharky on camera. We've met some people's dogs.
No, it's okay. She's downstairs. She's happy. No, but I think it basically means that there needs to be a few things that we can just agree on.
And rally around.
But it doesn't mean it has to completely change the entire sport, and I don't think it should. Yeah. Because within the last 10, 12 years since
my dog's sorry about that.
It's okay.
The dogs hear each other.
They do. No, I mean, stand-up paddling has gone a long ways in 10, 15 years. So,
and we have to remember that.
Important to remember.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, keep leading the way. Before we, it's already been 45 minutes. I love talking with you. Let's throw in, I'm wearing, I don't know if you recognize this shirt. Coconut Cup.
That was so much fun.
Yeah, I was remembering some of the great places I've been where you have been to and really enjoyed them. And this was definitely one of them. And you had special skills there, which I forgot that you had a tip jar and were making money. I have a picture. It's going to be posted on Facebook.
Okay,
being
I'm sure
a bartender.
So what Kristen is talking about, real quick. Hello, Beach Culture World Tour, and hi, Wellington. It's fun to see you guys on here. It's cool. So you're talking about the St. Croix Coconut Cup, which I actually went to twice, and then we were both there one year. And Q, a really good longtime friend, and his family owned an awesome beach bar down there in St. Croix, and they put on a stand-up paddle race. And I mean, St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands, I didn't just go there for a race. I went there for about a week and a half. We went surfing, cruised around the island, pretty much just hung out on the beach the entire time. It was a blast. But because they have a family-run business, they're just on the beach, and they were, helping me out so much. They put me up in an awesome place to stay. I said, okay, what can I help with? And, they had everybody that was cooking and serving tables. So they're like, we really need you behind the bar. And I was like, okay, I don't really know how to make any drinks, but I learned. But yeah, I think I ended up making more money from working in the bar there than I did from racing.
Being a professional racer. Part of the experience of life.
It was, and that just made that trip so much fun. And actually, for the race, we got epic conditions and had a downwinder. So I was kind of like, all right, this is the best trip ever.
Yeah. There was one more comment from Tom Cochran. Do you know who that is?
Yeah.
It's great to see you do these sports with such power and grace. And I don't have time to read the whole thing, but he talks about your dad and windsurfing and riding bikes together and everything. But he said, you've gotten your dad's gene. Keep showing your sport and competitors who's boss. I thought that was cute. It wasn't really a question, but it was a very nice comment from Tom.
Thank you very much for that. It's fun to go out and do what I love, and it's fun to go out and be able to do it at a professional level. And it's also fun to challenge myself and push myself to do things that maybe I didn't think were possible. And I think that's what's really cool about not just sport of stand-up paddling, but you know, being an athlete, is that you get to push yourself physically, mentally, different conditions, and yeah, you don't give up, because you never know what you can do. And if there's something that you want to try, go for it, because you never know where it's going to take you. I had no idea that a dream of mine, okay, well, I had a dream that I would be able to travel and race and go to a lot of cool places, but I never realized that I'd be able to make a living from it, and this lifestyle be a reality, and it is. So just
love that.
That.
Yeah, as Wellington says, you transmit good energy, and you so do. And I know we're going to continue to see wonderful things from you, Fiona, or Wild Fiona. I think you have like a Hollywood name there.
Wild Fiona.
Would be a good, show. TV show, that's next.
Welcome to the wild side.
Yeah. Well, when things get back to normal, look forward to seeing you in person. Thank you so much for spending the time with us here. Again, Sup Connect Live every Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific. And there is a Facebook group that we hope you will come and join us, and we're going to post some pictures, including Fiona being an excellent bartender. I have that photo. And winning and top of the podium, and just, again, your lovely energy and all that you're doing out in the world, and how you manage your type 1 diabetes is amazing too. So, mwah! Take care, my friend.
Much, Kristen. It's been a blast. And thank you so much to everybody who, you know, watched this, and to those who are going to watch the reruns, and especially for the questions, and little messages. There, it was cool to see him coming through. So thank you, Panama.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It will be on YouTube and IGTV right afterwards. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.